I'm joined by Bill Scher. He is a senior writer at Campaign for America's Future, also a columnist at The Week. Bill, these new talking points on Obamacare, it seems every week or every 10 days there's a new set of talking points that start circulating. Now there's the potential for 50 million to 100 million canceled insurance policies over the next year by October of 2014. What's the source of this new talking point, and is there any truth to it?
Well, this is coming from the American Enterprise Institute, which is a conservative think tank. I mean, just on its face, it's ludicrous. We're a country of 300 million people, most of whom are not everyone who is an adult. So you're basically suggesting that every single insurance plan is going to get canceled. That's not mathematically possible. Uh, what can happen over time is that insurers and employers are going to make adjustments to their plans. They were doing that before Obamacare. We'll do it after Obamacare. It's called a free market. I had my premium jacked up on me before Obamacare got passed, as a lot of other Americans did. So you can't make every single change to an insurance plan evidence that Obamacare is awful.
Right. Well,
The
this seems
question,
to connect back to the same thing we had. It was a couple of weeks ago when there were the stories of people having their policies canceled now. And when we dug into it, we started to find that, well, actually, hold on a second. People who had policies that were pre-existing, so to speak, before Obamacare, those were grandfathered in. It was the private insurers that continued offering plans that they knew, or at least should have known, were not going to work under Obamacare. They didn't tell a lot of their policyholders that, and to blame that on President Obama seemed like quite a stretch.
well, right. I mean, what's happened so far has affected the individual market. So people who don't get insurance through their employer, they're buying it themselves. They're either a small business owner or an individual entrepreneur or otherwise just buying it themselves.
Sure.
That's a very small portion of the country. It's a market that has tons of turnover. People don't usually buy insurance in that market for more than a year or two at a time anyway. So they're constantly changing their plans. And so all that's happened so far is since Obamacare puts a floor on the minimum amount of benefits that a plan has to offer, they had a grandfather clause for some of these substandard plans, but that market just changes a lot. So the grandfather clause ends up getting moot after a period of time. That was always in the law. It was always openly talked about. It should not be a surprise to anybody. If you were in that market, you should have been aware of that. That's the fact. What some folks are looking at now, let's be honest about the numbers here. The Congressional Budget Office has projected that by 2016, there would be 6 million fewer people who receive employer-based health insurance compared to this year. So that's different than the individual market. That's the market that most of us are in who have salary jobs.
Sure.
That doesn't mean 6 million people no longer have insurance. That means 6 million people work at offices where the employer said, it's going to be in my best interest to shift my employees onto the exchanges and not give them the insurance directly through me. They'll still get insurance.
When we look at each of these kind of like trendy talking points individually, we find out pretty quickly that they're either partially, mostly, or completely untrue. However, we still see in the numbers that this is having an effect. There is some stuff is sticking to the wall, for lack of a better term, when it comes to some of this. And I'm seeing polls that show the popularity of Obamacare as a thing separate from these kind of underlying questions about health insurance, popularity decreasing, President Obama's approval decreasing. And I'm curious whether this is just being mishandled by the White House, or whether the right is doing a particularly good job at getting stuff to stick.
No, I don't. I think this is more just the reality of a ramp up of a new program. I don't think the right's messaging is anything magical to it. Their messaging has been pretty awful for several years up until this point, or else they would have won the 2012 election or won the shutdown, for example. But I think it is the case that you're in this initial part of the enrollment period. The website is still a hinky, though it gets better every day. If, for example, you get a notice from your insurer that your current plan is ending and you don't have an easy way to find out what your alternatives are, you're going to be very frustrated and uncertain. And even though this is actually a very small percentage of the country, it only takes a handful to get media coverage. And so that can create a broad level of uncertainty of what comes next. So that's going to drive poll numbers down. That would be a bigger concern if Obama was running for re-election next week and he would lose and the next guy would then upend the entire program. But that's not what's happening. It doesn't even matter if Democrats lose the Senate in 2014. The Congress isn't running the program, the executive branch is. Obama has essentially 3.5 more years to continue with the implementation. All this stuff is noise. They want to damp the noise down because they want people to sign up. They don't want people to be dissuaded from signing up. But there's plenty of time to work through these flares, the misinformation, the hysterical manufactured anxiety coming from the media, coming from the right.
And when we think about all of those, Bill, when we think about each one of those, there's never like a control group, right? Where we say, okay, people like the website at a 2 out of 10. People like the average private insurance website at a 2 out of 10 or whatever the number may be. In other words, people have long been dissatisfied with their private insurers. There doesn't seem to be any comparison being made that these things are never incredibly smooth as it is, not only comparing to other programs as you did in your piece a couple of weeks ago in the week, whether it be Social Security or whatever else, but even compared to what people had. Who was so thrilled with what they had?
Well, some people were, but if often you might think you have better insurance than you do. You don't find out that's bad until you're in trouble. That's why it's always very hard for those on the hard left to get single payer pass, because if everybody openly hated what they had, it would be very easy to say, I want to go into this very reliable government plan. But most folks, as of today, like what they have, rightly or wrongly. So it's easy to inject a degree of uncertainty that, what you like is going to be stripped away from you.
All right, Bill Scher, senior writer, Campaign for America's Future, also a columnist at The Week. Bill, thanks again for being on.
Always a pleasure.